So
No, we can lead
so,
with
I mean,
this.
if they're really wanting him, they got to give him the offer first.
Exactly. And guys, you're getting an interesting treat because we're going from the green room to live, and we're actually going to continue. Yeah, James. Look, I know. Look, I've gotten you the past 2 times. You got me this time, right? Gentleman's agreement says best 3 out of 5, right? That's what we're gonna have to. That's what we're gonna have to do. You win this one, but guys, tell the people where they can find you, and we're going to continue having this conversation we were having in the green room because there's something interesting that we noticed today. I don't think it's super surprising for the observant eyes and the, very observant ears, but something that we found surprising. PG, where can the people find all of your great content?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify. The PG Show, all one word. Or you guys can find me, the PG Show _. Listen, I've been going back and forth with USC fans for the past couple of days, so I will definitely go interact with you. That's the right word. That's the word.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, interactions. It's key.
Jay, what about yourself, man?
Y'all know me, Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. You know where to find me. Just search for me on YouTube as well as wherever podcasts are download, listen to. I'm always in the house.
Yeah, guys, we got a lot to talk about. A lot of Well, first off, this was a great weekend for sports. Bama had a scrimmage that we got to talk about some points there. Like I said a few weeks ago, it's like Fort Knox trying to find information out about Alabama right now. But Nick Saban hit the podium, and we can analyze some of that. We've got some recruiting news to talk about. Oklahoma gets a quarterback. Arkansas gets a quarterback. Ohio State gets a quarterback. The Big Ten right now has some institutions recruiting really, really well. We got to talk about that. But we also, this isn't a UFC podcast. What about that? I don't know if anybody watched UFC this weekend, but it was an incredible card. I had no voice all Sunday. That's why there was no content Sunday. But regardless, guys, we're going to kick into it with Oklahoma recruiting just because this is the topic we were talking about in the green room. And we're not going to start off with the new quarterback commit. We'll get to that. There's something we all noticed, right? And it's for a prospect that, guys, if I'm wrong, by all means, whenever you take over, let me know. I don't necessarily know that this is a must-land prospect, but I think if you polled the Oklahoma fan base at large, this would be the number one answer for the prospect they want the best or the worst for this class, and that's David Stone. David Stone had a buddy tweet something out, tweeting out his top 12, and David Stone said, let's play at the same institution. They both kind of went back and forth in agreement. Now, we were all talking before because there's been a lot of smoke up until this point about where Michigan State stands for David Stone. Now, interesting to note that they lost their defensive tackle coach who went from Michigan State to Georgia Tech, something we have to watch. But Michigan State was not in his buddy's top 12. Guys, is it done? Is the Michigan State battle for David Stone done? PG, I'm going to start with you.
I think so. You've heard nothing about Michigan State really gaining any traction at this point. Seems like it's starting to die off. It seems like when you look at the recruitments around David Stone that are starting to gain traction, places where he's spending more consecutive time, you've looked at Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Miami. You're hearing that Georgia Tech is going to be soaring up that list, maybe even getting official, which I just laugh at that because Georgia Tech getting an official just for a 5-star defensive lineman, it cracks me up, including a guy that's not even from Georgia. Maybe I could see it if the guy was from Georgia, but yeah. So, I think Michigan State's out at this point. I don't think they're getting Michael Patterson McDonald. I think, I've been pretty adamant he's going to be a Sooner, and that's David Stone's best friend. I do see what you're saying about Jaden Jackson over at IMG, which, it's interesting because David Stone's around so many elite athletes at IMG, and he's probably not even the best one. You could make arguments that Ellis Robinson is better. You could make arguments, because there's Jarrett Gibson, Ernest Willow Jr.
Team is unbelievable.
Those are all 5-stars, right? So you can make an argument that he's not even the best guy on his team. But, when it comes to Jaden Jackson and David Stone, it would be cool. I just don't think that they're going to be the package deal that I think people are potentially thinking that they will be.
Jay, what you thinking?
No, I'm in the exact same line as James asked the question about the Georgia Tech D-line coach being the one that came from Michigan State. Yeah, he is. So, the Michigan State, recruiter has been heavy, of course, on him. And now he's at Georgia Tech. He's doing the same thing. And so I agree. I do think that Michigan State's basically out of the race. Stone does a really good job of trolling and having fun with this process. And I think it's more of a coping mechanism for him because he's not allowed to go commit like he wants to. He can't do what he wants at the moment. Like we've heard the rumors of it coming from his mouth. He's tried to commit a couple of times. And because of that, I sense that he's just going to have fun with this until the opportunity really presents itself. Heck, I had someone jump in my comments a few videos back when I was talking about Stone, and he said, yeah, rumor has it, you can walk into OU's offices randomly and you'll see him with his feet up in Coach Bates' office just shooting it. They just hanging out. And so this is like a common occurrence. This isn't like unofficial visits or no, it's just him just in his office hanging out with Coach Bates. So if that's the case, I do believe that it's going to come down the line, and that's the player that we all want. Of course, we all want, David Stone, want the local boy. We want another Gerald McCoy situation to where we can get a local 5-star, build him up, send him in the draft in the first round. We can do it. It's possible with this coaching staff. And I sense that that's going to be what happens long term. And so the Jaden Jackson piece, as we talked about in the green room, kind of solidified for me that Michigan State's probably out because he doesn't have an offer from them yet. Now, Michigan State could change that, but when he dropped his top 12, you didn't see him. You didn't even see, you saw Colorado, you saw Tennessee, you saw Alabama, Ohio State. You saw big schools. You just did not see MSU, in which MSU has been really big on defensive linemen lately.
And jumping in here, you saw every other school that you've heard in connection to David Stone other than MSU. So I don't think there's anybody stating that these two are going to be a package deal. But I also think in recruiting, whenever we're at this stage, you have to do a little bit of Hansel and Gretel, and you have to, find the breadcrumbs. And I just thought it was an interesting little breadcrumb that Michigan State loses out on a defensive line coach that is establishing relationships with recruits. I mean, you look at what that guy has done over the past 2 years. That guy's done a really good job on the trail. Now he's at Georgia Tech. David Stone's buddy drops his top 12, Michigan State not in there, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to play together. Well, for you to play together, Michigan State, in theory, right, in theory would have to be there. Look, guys, I've said it all along. We've kind of entertained the other teams. We've talked about the other teams and the possibility David Stone goes to A&M, the possibility of a Michigan or a Michigan State, because that's just us doing our due diligence. And at the end of the day, this is recruiting. Anything can happen. We have to present all sides of the argument. I think everybody on this panel is in agreement that if we had a crystal ball to insert, it would go in favor of Oklahoma for David Stone in overwhelming favor. At least for me, it will. I won't speak for you two, but that's just how it feels right now. And it seems like every little breadcrumb we get is another little breadcrumb in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Jackson doesn't even have an offer from Michigan State.
Exactly.
So I don't know how you can include a team in your top 12 when they don't have an offer now. Because, I mean, we've seen guys like that drop their top school list and then they get an offer down the road and they change it. So
yeah, true.
You never know. Like, maybe he gets that offer from Michigan State now that New Michigan State's aware of him. And then all of a sudden, Michigan State's in that next top school list. Who knows?
They absolutely could. No doubt about it.
I mean, that's fair. I have seen some players that have dropped their top list without the school giving them an offer, with a school that hasn't given them an offer before. We've seen that before. That has happened on a couple of occasions. Heck, I think one that just jumped out to me recently, and this is a very interesting one. I know we all talked, there was the conversation around Aaron Flowers and his commitment, and, he decided to go to Oregon over all places. But there was an Oregon player in town that's an Oregon commit in town recently. Fox Crater, 4-star offensive tackle. He came into an unofficial visit. I think that was today, to the 10th, yes, today. And then he got an offer after the visit.
Yeah, but that's not uncommon. That happens.
It isn't. It isn't, but this is intriguing. It's intriguing that we got a player that's already committed to a school to come here, and then we gave him an offer afterwards. Now, I'm used to players coming to visit, then we offer them, but I'm not really used to a commit coming, and then we offer them after a commit. Just interesting. But my point is, the top list, we've seen players put out there that these are my top schools and never got an offer before. So
Yeah,
interesting down the line.
This reminds me
when
of
it comes to
QAnon.
David Stone to Oklahoma, I would give Williams Nwaneri. I'd put Williams Nwaneri up there as I would think a better shot of Oklahoma landing. If I had to take a guess just between the two, just because there's other factors for David Stone.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about a commitment y'all did pick up, and that was a quarterback, Michael Hawkins, 4-star out the state of Texas. Now, once again, I don't think this was super surprising. I think a lot of people pretty much well anticipated that this was an Oklahoma battle, especially at the point where last week, the week before the commitment, not only is he visiting Oklahoma, but then a few days later, TCU, the team that everybody else thought was the other team in this battle, receives crystal balls in their favor for a different quarterback. Guys, I think this commitment is intriguing to people. One, because talented prospect. Anytime you get a blue chip quarterback, you're over the moon. Why wouldn't you be? But two, he's got a friend. It's a very talented 5-star. And look, it's a long ways to go between now and 2025, assuming he doesn't reclassify. And there's a lot of talk that Devon Mitchell will reclassify.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, that's a battle that's got a lot out in front. But anything you can do to try and add anything else in your favor is a thing you just don't argue with. How are y'all feeling about the commitment of Michael Hawkins? PG, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm liking it, right? Because back in 2023, which is funny to say or 2022, we had the quarterback depth issues, which, I mean, that was a given when Lincoln Riley took Caleb Williams and, everything transpired the way it did. But yeah, I'm excited because now you're looking at it. Oklahoma's potentially going to take one more here. You have your quarterback set for 2025. So in terms of the recruiting classes getting started, both 2024 and 2025, I think would start heating up here. 2025, maybe a little bit later, but definitely 2024, I think, here up to the spring game, maybe even going into Champion Barbecue. That's when I think you'll really start to see Oklahoma start landing some commits, because you're going to start seeing guys start, narrowing down their lists or taking official visits and then wanting to go ahead and commit, or, so I guess some guys don't even take official visits. They just commit somewhere and then call it good. So yeah, I think Michael Hawkins is going to be exciting. Do I think he'll ever start over Jackson Arnold? Probably not.
Interesting.
So I don't know what his role will be like as a Sooner, just because I would expect Arnold gets redshirted. You have 3 years of Arnold as your starting quarterback. Is Michael Hawkins really going to sit it out for 1 year? I'm not sure.
Interesting. Look, but one thing I will say, and I said this in the Michael Hawkins video, I much prefer the approach of having a quarterback every single year than the approach of the one-off year, because we know with the transfer portal, people are going to transfer regardless, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the great thing. It's like Michael Hawkins is at least for 2 years going to give you a quarterback competition.
Very talented guy. Yeah.
Yeah, then maybe if you get a guy like Samaj Jones as well, that just adds to that fire. Maybe it's just 2 years. I just don't see Michael Hawkins supplanting Jackson Arnold.
Look, Arnold's talented, but so is Michael Hawkins. He's a very talented prospect as well. Jay, what was your thoughts when you saw the commitment, and what are your thoughts moving forward?
So, of course, me and you talked about this a little bit via text. No surprise. We kind of expected him to make this choice. It felt like this is where he wanted to go, and, it felt like that he's been trying to recruit other players to join him. And so we're excited about him being a legacy. I like him coming in and going on the opposite side of his dad so that he could try to compete and make his own name while at the same time enjoying the fruits of being a legacy and playing at the same school as his dad did. That's always an exciting thing to do, is following father's footsteps while not following in his footsteps and paving your own path. But I think it was a no-brainer, and it was a great move. I'm glad that it's done. I'm glad that now he can focus on development and focus on, moving forward. If I'm correct, Kyler Murray's dad trains him. And so a lot of people are really focused on that and thinking that he can be at that level of talent. Now, I agree with you, PG. I don't think that he's going to surpass Jackson Arnold, which that's not the point. You got to make sure you have a backup quarterback every year. But I don't think Jackson Arnold's going to play here for 3 years. I think that he's going to play quarterback for 2 years, and he's going to go to the draft.
So you don't think they redshirt him and he gets the...
No, they redshirt him, but that redshirt year he's not going to play. Then he'll play for 2 years, and then he's gone. All you got to do is be removed 3 years from high school to go to the draft.
Redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore.
And that's it. He's gone. So he'll be a redshirt year. He'll be the redshirt year that doesn't count.
You just have to be 3 years removed from high school.
High school.
Oh, okay. See, I thought
Yeah,
it was,
3 years from high
I thought
school.
it was if you redshirted, you still had to play.
No, just 3 years
Okay.
removed from high school.
Common misconception, though.
That
Okay,
actual
so, yeah,
red
okay,
shirt counts as 1 year. So,
So maybe
the year
Hawkins
that he
will
doesn't.
stick it out then, because he'll still get 2 years at that point.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so unless Arnold ends up playing this season, he redshirts, and then he'll have 2 years as a redshirt freshman and as a sophomore. Kind of like Drake May, which is why Drake May is going high, and they consider high in the draft next year's draft, because this was his redshirt freshman year this year. This coming season is his redshirt sophomore year, but he's been out of high school 3 years. And so
Drake May fan.
yeah, I love Drake May. Dude, it's going to be special.
He still won't
But
go
anyway.
number 1, though.
Yeah, no, that's Caleb. But I do think that I think Michael's going to get a couple of years at quarterback here, and then whoever he's competing with in 2024 is going to do nothing but, sharpen that iron, and that may lead to us having 1-year quarterbacks at that point. Just depending on how deep we get in there and how many quarterbacks stick around. You may only get 1, maybe 2 years of tape before you end up going to the draft, which to me is always fine. If you go to a program that's good at developing that position, that's all you really need is a year or two. Scouts are going to find you and figure out that you're talented enough. But going forward, it's great that we've got our quarterback. I think the floodgates on recruiting open now. I think that now other recruits are going to actually say, yep, we got the quarterback. We've got the quote-unquote leader. Let's go ahead and start, getting these commitments in and allowing people to make it happen. So Jeremiah Newcomb kind of broke the trend. He went ahead and did it himself, said, nah, I don't want to go nowhere else. I don't want to visit nowhere else. I'm here, and now I'm just going to focus on football. I think we get that, as a lot of other players probably will think about, I don't need to be wine and dine. I know where I want to be.
Yeah,
Jeremiah Newcomb was so funny. We had no idea who that kid was.
No clue.
And it's interesting, man. Bama has some guys like that in this class, and I think this is a perfect segue where they commit early, and it's just like, all right, we're done. We don't need to see the process. We're good to go. Speaking of Bama, though, we have a lot we need to get into, and there's a lot of spring games this weekend that I certainly want to talk about. But there was a scrimmage this weekend, and like I keep saying, trying to get any information is like Fort Knox right now. And y'all know me, I'm not going to press. That's just not what I do, right? But Nick Saban hit the podium, and we can analyze some things he talked about, and we can kind of read some of the tea leaves. First and foremost, he seems pretty pleased with where the offense is, and as an Alabama fan, that was encouraging to hear. One of my biggest complaints was the just lack of consistency on both sides of the ball, right? And I think one of the reasons for lacking consistency can be imbalance on the offensive side of the ball. And so whenever Saban hit the podium, and the first thing he's talking about with Tommy Rees that he really likes is the balance that Tommy Rees is bringing to the table, that stood out to me. He talked about Tommy Rees really adjusting to what Alabama does while implementing some of what he does. And Saban said he thought that it was a great kind of mold and that it's heading in a great direction. So from all, tidbits we got, the offense had a good day. Now, to be fair, Kool-Aid McKinstry was out. Deontay Lawson was out. Who else was it? There was 2 or 3 guys more that were injured on the defense. Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, both guys out. So the offense was set up in a good position, right? Whenever you have those amount of guys, and especially the guys who were out. The flip side of that, though, is you get to develop further into the defense. And as Jant says, Justice Haynes is apparently looking real good. And if you're an Alabama fan in here right now, I have good news for you. This is not the only freshman that is apparently really impressing. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that these freshmen are going to start. That's a lot of competition to go. Caleb Downs, rave reviews on him. Caden Proctor looking really, really good. Ola Salinan looking really, really good. Malik Benson, though not a freshman, they say that guy right there is looking really good. I'm excited. Guys, outside perspective looking in, I don't know, PG, if you heard what Nick Saban said when he hit the podium, but kind of from what I've talked about, what are you thinking? For a lot of change happening at Alabama, both coordinators gone, new quarterback, new linebackers, new safety. What are you thinking of hearing the rave review of the offense so early?
I mean, I don't know why Nick Saban wouldn't be impressed with the offense after you just made an upgrade from Bill O'Brien. Because, I mean, yeah, it was an upgrade, however you look at it. But again, I think the one thing I'm really paying attention to with Alabama during the offseason is that quarterback position.
Fair.
So, Dylan his name's
Dylan Lonergan. Yep.
He
True
was
freshman.
an early enrollee, so he's on campus. But then you've also got Jalen Milroe, you've got Ty Simpson. So it's like, who's going to step up and be your guys' quarterback? Obviously, we're probably not going to know till that Texas game. That first game, I think, for you guys is another game where he's probably going to use it to evaluate who's going to be the starter there.
He could.
Why would you not? That's really what I'm watching right now for Alabama. I want to know who's going to play quarterback. I feel like everything else will be fine. I'm not really worried about the defensive line. Like, Alabama recruited it really well. You guys got really good pieces there, which I think you talked about last week. Was it the Alabama local kids, Quinn Ewers, and the other kid that are doing
James
really well?
Smith is really impressing right now, and that was so necessary to get, especially after losing Peter Woods to Clemson. I mean, James Smith became a necessity at that point.
Yeah, so that's all great. I'm not really going to be worried about the Alabama defense just because they're so consistent. Last year I think was kind of really just an outlier. You have Justice Haynes there this year, and he's impressing. You've also got Richard Young coming in. So Alabama is going to be deep at the running back position. They're not going to have problems. And let's be honest, if a hot name drops into the transfer portal and they absolutely feel like they need to go out there and get somebody, they'll go get somebody. So Alabama will be fine, I think. But I'm just really curious what they're going to do with that quarterback position. And who's going to step up and be the leader there and be their starting quarterback for next season.
That's the natural conversation, right?
It's such a cop-out answer, but it's
but it's not at the same. Yeah. Look, I get what you mean because it is the easy answer, but it's the easy answer for good reason. I can go on and on and on and say, this is a battle we need to talk about. This is a battle we need to talk about, and all of those things can remain true. But at the end of the day, there is one position that touches the ball every time they're on the field, or at least. Unless you're running some gadget play.
Quarterback playing in the SEC West, you could easily drop 2 or 3 games. So,
exactly.
Alabama's got to figure that one out. I think that's just a question that everybody's going to watch. I think we're going to all be watching the Texas quarterback situation. I know OU fans are going to say, well, we're watching OU quarterback. We're not watching that. The national stage is not watching that one like we are Texas and Alabama. But I would say Alabama's that one this year that we're all going to have our eyes on and go, okay, who is the next great Alabama quarterback? To follow up, especially Bryce Young, which I don't know how you fill those shoes.
That's going to be tough. But I think what you do is you preach to them, you don't have to be Bryce Young. Be Jalen Milroe or be Ty Simpson. Right? Carve out your own path and everything else will follow. I think that's real key. Jay, what are you thinking, bro?
No, yeah, I am 100% in agreement with PG on this one. The quarterback position is really what's the most intriguing, but at running back, y'all always got running backs, man. Like, what am I supposed to do? Think that, Alabama's going to falter? No, you guys always have that. That's you. That's naturally Alabama, especially with the old school Nick Saban offenses of having these behemoths at running back and being able to put them into the league. So I'm not worried, especially once Richard Young shows up. Like, I think that dude's going to be like the most ridiculous running back you guys had in a few years. I think something about him. I think it's his name. Just Richard Young feels like an NFL running back's name. And it's just plain and just simple, and he's just going to run it down everybody's throat. And then watching this film, I feel the same way. But it is good to hear that Saban is excited, but at the same time, like PG said, you guys technically did upgrade into a offensive coordinator that's built more for college. Then you do have a guy that's really trying his hardest to put, NFL type concepts on the field. These kids are going to look a hell of a lot better and a lot more comfortable because it's not so complex. Like, there's going to be complexities in there, but there's going to be outs on that to make it easier for them to digest. Whereas an O'Brien offense, NFL caliber, it's hard to digest that because you have to be complex because both sides of the ball is a chess match. They're battling it. And similar in college, but it's not grandmaster versus master when it comes to NFL and college football. So I can definitely expect to see things look better. I can see people feeling more refreshed. And outside of that, man, yeah, I'm glad to hear that Saban's happy with the move with Tommy Rees. And I don't think that he would throw him under the bus immediately. He'd at least give it
Oh
the
boy,
season.
that'd be worrisome.
Yeah, I'll be like, he's already tossing him.
2.0 right there.
That's gonna have y'all's hearts going.
First scrimmage. Yeah, offense sucks. We made a huge mistake. God,
I think when it was I'm about to
horrible.
fire somebody tomorrow. Don't just wait for it. You'll hear about it. Like, dang,
Boy,
man,
that
that's
would
kind
be
of
bad.
bad.
That'd be bad.
That would be
no
bad.
doubt.
But
So-
y'all still have those position coaches there still too. So I think that outside, besides that point, you're still going to have quality players, and it's good to see the freshmen are actually making waves, because we heard similar at Oklahoma. You heard similar with like Caleb Hicks. He's out there making waves as a freshman, which is really good. That means that, God forbid anything happens down the line, you do have something as a backup. And we had that this year with 2 freshmen doing very well in the bowl game. You want to see those freshmen be able to be comfortable
doubt.
going in day one, and then you don't pull them out until you need them really sophomore, maybe junior year.
Yeah, no doubt.
So Jance says something here in the chat. He said the only worrisome group is the secondary for Alabama, and it kind of posed the question in my head that I think everybody here is going to like. Is that, like, compared to OU and Alabama, does Alabama just own all the rooms right now? Like, are they just better than Oklahoma in every single room, or would you say Oklahoma is better in the secondary right now than Alabama currently sits? Because I'm curious to hear, like, do you think
So,
OU's quarterback room
Here's
is
the
better
thing.
than
I
Alabama?
think you have to be excited about this. Is tough because there's so much new for Alabama's, right? As far as upside, I like Alabama's room. Kool-Aid McKinstry is graded as a first-round corner right now, right? So you got him. Terry and Arnold is there. He's going to be another guy. So I like those two.
Even with the complaints you had about Kool-Aid McKinstry, he's first rounder.
Yeah, so like already you have a first rounder for Alabama's secondary. Plus you have Terry and Arnold. At star money, you're going to have, I don't know, maybe Earl Little Jr. I think that's going to be interesting. Malachi Moore has some experience, and Caleb Downs. Granted, it's hard for me to sit here, PG, and tell you like wholeheartedly, hey, a freshman who's never played a down in college football is better than your guy who had a really solid year last year. Because as much as I believe in Caleb Downs, I just can't put theory over tangible, right? So I think that the Bama secondary has a higher ceiling. It's just they don't have the experience that the Oklahoma secondary fields this year, and I think that's a very compelling factor for the Oklahoma secondary.
Well,
but I
mean,
think
the Oklahoma
talent-wise, the Bama
secondary
one
in
is
terms
great.
of starting has a lot of depth there.
Yes, they have the
But I
starting
think when it
experience.
goes to the bench, you're going to see a lot of freshmen. You're going to see a lot of freshmen there. So that's where I'm kind of like thinking. I'm like, okay, so who's got the better room? I mean, like OU's got, I think, more established starters.
Yes,
but
I like the talent that Bama has collected a little bit more. And that's, look, they
Not fair.
just have Terry and Arnold was a hair away from a 5-star. Kool-Aid was a 5-star. Caleb Downs was a 5-star. They've just done really exceptional. And guys, we haven't even talked. Desmond Ricks reclassified. He was a top 10 player in the class of 2024. I think he was a top 5 player in the class of 2024.
Yeah.
And he reclassified from that class to 2023 and was still a top 20 player in the nation. Or I don't know if he was top 20, but I know he was a 5-star. So he's still there. So yeah, OU has the better experience, but in terms of upside, that Bama room, that's interesting. But that's a hard conversation to have. It is an interesting one.
So what do you pick? OU running back room or Alabama running back room?
Bama.
Even over the depth that the OU running back room has.
Well, here's the thing. I think the opposite conversation now happens, right? Like Jace has more experience than anybody at Oklahoma. Marcus Major is either there or he's not there. Roydell Williams has got at least as much experience as Javonte Barnes. And then you have 5-star Justice Haynes and you have quasi 5-star Richard Young. So yeah. Yeah, I'd take that. Now, don't get me wrong. You guys, you both know how much I think of Barnes and Sawchuk. I think those
That's
guys
why I was asking that question, because I know
ballers.
you talk highly of them.
Oh, no, I think those dudes are so next level. But this is the thing, PG. I just think that Bama has a guy out front in Jace that has the experience. And then they have another guy in Roy Dell that also has the experience. So they're very talented, but then they also have the experience. I think talent-wise, Oklahoma has as talented running back room as you could possibly want. They just don't have that experience throughout yet. Javonte Barnes has good experience. I'm not going to take that away from him. I think Sawchuk, I certainly don't think lack of experience is a negative on him. God, guys, we saw what he did in that bowl game. He was phenomenal. Unbelievable. He's going to be a weapon, but you just don't have that proven, like, I know on 3rd and 8, whenever they're sending a blitz, my running back has seen this before and he can pick up that blitz. Right, outside of Major, you just don't have that guy yet. Now with DeMarco Murray, though, in fairness, I don't think that's going to be an issue in terms of running back coaching. But you get the point I'm trying to make here. Yeah, that's a fun one.
You know, we could really hurt some OU fans here in the chat. As Ty, would you take Dylan Gabriel as a starting quarterback for Alabama?
Look, I think Dylan Gabriel. Here's the thing. He's safer than the options at Bama right now, but I like the upside of either Milroe better, because I think if Milroe gets it together, not only does he have a bigger arm, he's just a better athlete. That's not a knock on DG, but like, guys, Milroe is a freak athlete, right? We saw what happened when he took off. And then Ty Simpson, once again, 5-star coming out of high school.
Yeah, so many OU fans want to get rid of Dylan Gabriel, so that's why.
No, he's a
You're
beast.
Bama guy. Do you want Dylan Gabriel as a 3,500 a yard? 35.
No, Dylan Gabriel is fine, but guys, like, it's interesting whenever you're asking like me, because you have to remember from looking at this from Bama's perspective, I have to also take into account upside. And the way Bama recruits, inevitably their guys have such high upside, but that's not to diminish anything Dylan Gabriel has done. Any team in the nation that starts this year with an established quarterback that knows their offensive coordinator like Dylan Gabriel, you have to, at the very least, feel very confident about your odds on offense. I don't think any team that starts 2023 with Dylan Gabriel wakes up and says offense is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just that question popped in my head when Jeff Lebby was being considered for that Alabama offensive job. I was like, does Dylan Gabriel hit the portal with how much OU fans are trashing him and go to Alabama, ball out, and go help them win a national championship?
Guys, our man RJ on here. We're going to have him on Friday, I believe. Today I wanted to get you on, man, but I had so much going earlier today. He says, from what I've heard, Malik Benson and Justice Haynes have been turning heads at Bama, and that's tough to do for those guys to point out as a newcomer. Yeah. And Malik Benson apparently has put on a little bit of muscle too. He's put on some muscle, and he's a smooth operator now. He could be a huge addition for this secondary. So, look, for Alabama, there's still questions. There's still a lot of questions. I have questions about the offensive line. As excited as I am about the wide receiver room, I have questions about the wide receiver room. Not about talent, but in terms of like, geez, somebody's got to step up outside of Malik Benson. Secondary, I have some questions. Talent, I want to see who it is. Who's going to be next to Caleb Downs? Is it going to be Christian Story? I just don't know. So interesting for Bama. Jay, what are you thinking, man?
I was going to say, I think it's going to be easy for you all come at the wide receiver position because of the new offensive coordinator. I think he's going to make it a lot easier for those guys. So. And so someone's going to step up. So I don't think that I get your concern because of how the last couple of years have gone, especially once the big name goes down. It seems like the entire wide receiver room doesn't know how to play anymore. But at the same time, when you have the right coordinator in there that can adjust for those type of players, someone's going to be able to step up because it's a lot easier for them. It feels more natural. And I think the Tommy Rees, I still kind of rave that hire. I think it was a really good hire, especially going to look at the concepts he used. Just as you mentioned, Ty, I went and looked a little bit at it. I'm like, okay, there's creativity.
It made a lot of sense when you started really watching, right? You were like, oh, okay, I see what they're going for.
He didn't have anybody that could actually throw the ball there, and somehow he got Ian Book drafted. So that tells you something. Ian Book got drafted because of him. So But outside of that, looking at the landscape of what's going on there at Alabama, y'all are going to be fine. And, PG, that was a great question to ask. And granted, if we didn't see Jalen Milroe, I think that Ty would have been like, yeah, I could see DG coming and doing well for us as an experienced quarterback who would know the system of the OC coming in. But we've seen Milroe, and we see exactly what he can potentially do whenever he's coached right. And so I could totally understand Milroe's upside's a little bit more intriguing because it is. We've seen it. We've got a chance to actually watch it happen. And like you said, it's better to talk about what you've seen instead of trying about the potential sometimes. And we've seen what Milroe can do, especially under Saban. So yeah, I got a good future, man. I'm curious more so than anything, like you said, the offensive line and that secondary with Caleb Downs potentially having to start as a freshman. I'm wondering what that looks like next season, because the depth isn't there like it's usually is.
Yeah, Brock, make no doubt about it. My curiosity doesn't stem from doubt. It stems from just like, honestly, my just research.
Proctor's a freshman, right?
He's a freshman, yeah. There's two freshmen that are really turning heads on the offensive line right now. The thing is, though, I'm more interested because of Wolford. I really liked that Coach Wolford hire, and I'm interested in seeing the charted experience and the charted growth in production from the offensive line from Doug Marone's last year to Wolford's first year to Wolford's second year. That's my curiosity, Brock. That stems from more of a place in terms of like an academic curiosity as opposed to like a doubt. Whereas like, okay, here's one. As much as I love a lot of the pieces Alabama has at wide receiver, and I do agree with Jay, the one thing that kills me is we've seen a drop problem. Right. And that has killed the Tide. They don't have Bryce. So as much as I think, and I've talked about this, I've said it, Jay's heard me say it, PG's heard, that Bama wide receiver room, it's not short on talent. There are so many talented guys there. It's consistency. Consistency. So I have a little bit more healthy curiosity. I won't even go as far as to say doubt. Healthy curiosity about the wide receiver than offensive line, where offensive line, I'm really just intrigued as to what happens.
That's fair.
So well to the negative, but frightening. There's no doubt, man. There's no doubt about. There's a lot on Texas that we have got to be very excited for. And like I told you earlier, man, I did say, and that's my fault, I wanted to get the Texas one out before this. I've just been all over the place. That's absolutely my fault. But I'm going to try and get Nino, get Steven, get some guys on here for the Friday stream. That way we can talk about this. But there's no doubt that Texas is in an interesting position. And I do kind of want to talk briefly about Texas right now because, guys, we got a lot of spring games this weekend. Isn't there something like 27 spring games this weekend?
Yeah, I remember sending one over to our SEC Connect group as we're going to probably talk really in depth on.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
7 programs holding their spring game this weekend. And of course, who was it? On3 dropped their most intriguing 10 for this weekend, and you had Texas, Penn State, Texas A&M, Clemson, USC, Georgia, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Arizona State, and Tennessee. Since all of them are this coming weekend, so it's going to be some truly intriguing. It's going to be some very intriguing matchups and stuff going on, and so I'm truly curious to see what it looks like. I want to see which quarterback comes out and prevails at the top for the spring game at Texas. I'm going to be honest. That's the one thing. And in the running back room, I want to see if one of those freshmen are going to end up taking the job there at Texas, which I don't see it happening. I think the running back room at Texas is still solid, even losing probably one of the best running backs to come through there.
Such a beast.
Side note, I still don't understand this argument about not taking a running back in the top 15 NFL draft. I totally understand that running backs production-wise fall off after a certain point, but if you can get that first 5 years of production out of them, why in the heck would you not take it? That's value right there. You got production. And if he ends up with the Eagles, oh my goodness, just cancel Christmas. Cancel Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
Cancel Christmas. And Ty's not even really an NFL guy, but he understands that. Cancel Kristen.
There are
Christmas.
certain places where it's just like, if you end up with that guy.
Whew, that's not fair. Cancel it.
God, that'd be fun. Now, frightening, I'm interested in hearing from you because everybody's talking about this quarterback situation at Texas, right? And naturally, everybody wants to see Quinn Ewers, no more mullet, right? And we saw when he was on last year, he was on. But we also saw his youth show. He's had another year in college football. And guys, I get it. I get he wasn't technically a true freshman. He was a freshman. And this is why I'll say he was absolutely a freshman. Because whenever he got to Ohio State, he got there in August. No offensive coordinator. If RJ, if you're in here, I want you to back me up on this. No offensive coordinator worth their salt is going to get a 5-star quarterback in August and then elevate them to the second best quarterback. What's up, Jay?
Oh no, I'm reading what Frightening put in here about Red, and that just that grinds my gears.
Oh. About Red apparently pushing. Yeah. No, but
that grinds my gears.
So here's what I mean with that. You're not going to get a 5-star quarterback, even if he's otherworldly talented. Get him in August whenever spring camp is done, fall camp is done, and you're not in learning phase anymore. You're in preparation phase. You're not going to get a guy and then elevate him to number 2 on the depth chart. In the event your starting quarterback gets hurt, now you're going to throw the guy that doesn't even know the offense out there. That's not happening. He came out early. He got the bag. He left. This is a big year for him. But, PG, I know that you're really interested in a quarterback not named Quinn Ewers and not named Manning. So talk to me about what you're excited to see from this Texas spring game.
I'm excited to see if Malik Murphy can come out there and light them up. Because I know a lot of Texas fans, they will sit here and deny him all day long. I was on a Twitter space with Texas fans that were sitting here denying him. I'm like, just because he don't have some fancy name does not mean that that kid can't go out there and ball. But Jay can back me up on this. Malik Murphy, he's a dude. And I think there's a chance that maybe, you know, if Texas doesn't put him out this year as a potential, at least 100% number 2 option, you could see Malik transfer after the spring. I think he'll have an idea of where he's going to be after this spring game. And hey, if he transfers and goes to another program like an Alabama or an Ohio State, a team that, you know, they have quarterback questions, Malik Murphy can easily take any of those starting quarterback jobs.
Maybe. Because, man, we got to remember, Ohio State has recruited that quarterback position really well.
Well, yeah. And they got Devin Brown up there, but
I really like Devin Brown.
I don't know. I'm really high on Malik Murphy. I really like him.
I like him too.
Don't got a diamond in the rough, and they're just going to waste it.
Well, is it wasting if Quinn Ewers is producing? That I think is the question. Jay, what are you thinking?
Yeah, that is the real question. Is if you're getting production, you don't have to play a freshman. Like, and then also even with Malik, if Quinn is doing the job, unfortunately for him, he's not going to get the opportunity. Surprisingly, I'm gonna be honest. If he didn't think that there was an opportunity for him to take the job from them, I'm surprised he didn't transfer because he is really talented, and that's what I've heard from Texas fans. But at the same time, it's kind of like you said, Ty. I mean, if Quinn is producing, you kind of got to keep it going. You know, you keep the party going. I mean, has Malik been dealing with injuries or anything?
Yes.
There you go. That's probably also a concern.
It's like if Quinn comes out this spring and he starts to look like he did last season, and Malik is outperforming, I'm going to take Malik over Quinn because he did not, outside of a couple of games, he really didn't have a good season last season. And I don't know if that's because he was coming off that injury, but I mean, I just think Malik Murphy is really the best quarterback in the room. And, you know, that's, I think, kind of been Texas's one of their weak points. They've just had subpar quarterback play over the past couple of years.
I'll look at it like this. If he can't eclipse 60% completion percentage this year, they do have a problem. Now, I believe he will, but if they get into a position where, what was the game? I think he had all right, yeah. if you throw at a 38% completion percentage, a 43% completion percentage, a 57% completion percentage, a 58% completion percentage, that's not 57%. That's not going to do it. But at the same time, the thing that gets me with Quinn is you obviously see the upside. You have a 75% completion percentage. And let's be very forthright here. He was playing Alabama as well as you could want a quarterback to play Alabama. So the talent is there. I don't want anybody watching this to think I'm giving you these numbers and hating. I'm giving you facts. I didn't make up the completion percentages. That's what it is. But I also believe that his talent is otherworldly. I'm super intrigued. And look, the Texas spring game, I'll absolutely be tuned into that. But they're not the only one. Guys, Texas A&M. You want to talk about maybe one of the more important spring games to watch. And look, nothing gets decided in the spring game. But at the same time, they had a lot of turmoil. Xavier was getting pushed around and had a hand. Sure, but they're somewhat skewed, truth. I hear you, but there were still other players that could catch the ball. And against Oklahoma State, I get it. The weather wasn't good. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. If you put a wall up in front of him, the ball would not have touched it. Like a huge wall, it wouldn't have hit the wall. So I hear you, but I don't know how skewed they are when we can go pull up the film. RJ says depends on the quarterback and how good and quick they can catch on the offense. 5-star, 4-star, 1-star. If you're good, you're good. Yeah, that's fair. I completely agree.
So Hank said Murphy could go
and he couldn't hit it, so it's not skewed. I hear you, truth, but if he couldn't hit it, your quarterback can't shy away, or your offensive coordinator can't shy away from it. So they can't be skewed if we're admitting, oh, well, yeah, numbers aren't good, but they kept passing it. Well, if they kept passing it, that's only furthering the argument that they're not skewed. Those two ideologies don't necessarily play. I have no share with that. I hear you, but there were times where the receivers were wide open. And Xavier, he's not the only receiver y'all have. It's not like he was just missing to him.
Ewers does not have an exception this year to throw under 60% because he gets Nair back this year too.
Oh, truth. At 38%, you're saying that it wasn't a bad throw? It, as if singular. Did he throw 3 passes and complete 1? Maybe that's what he did. Maybe he threw 3 passes, completed 1, and Xavier, he got pushed off the 2 routes.
Ty, I think you're off on this one. I think it was 6 passes.
Don't get me wrong, truth, I hear you, but we can't say it was a bad throw whenever there's multiple sub 60%. That's not A. That's not relegated to uno. That's multiple. But like I said, I've been a defender of Quinn Ewers, but I also I try and look at everything from an unbiased opinion and objective, because I have no dog in this conversation's fight. So objectively looking at this, we can't just say, hey, you threw a 30% completion percentage, you had a bad throw.
Here's my deal, though. If he's banking on just Xavier to go out there and catch those passes, then you guys have more problems than just your quarterback throwing at 60%. But Xavier is not the only quarterback that you guys have, or wide receiver that you guys have.
If the argument is, hey, he threw 100% of passes to one guy, and he missed all of them, I hear you, but that wasn't the case. Good any other, but frightening. We can go back and he was missing wide receivers over the middle, wide open, 5 yards over their head. Thus, you could have put a wall in front of him and it wouldn't have hit the wall. I hear you, my brother in Christ. I hear you. The numbers are speaking against your, and the film is. I hear you. The deep passes, they shouldn't have been thrown. But at a certain point, like we can also say and admit, he had an inconsistent season. Right? Like, it's just like, for me, I can admit Bama had an inconsistent year, a bad year. I can say, oh, the refs blew calls against Tennessee. They forgot what down it was. Sure. But that's an oversimplification of the issue. You're not wrong. but that's also diminishing a lot of the nuance that goes into the conversation. And also diminishes that we're not just talking about one game, sub 60%. I think I listed 5. That's where I'm saying there has got to be a progression. Because now you don't have Bijan. If you go 5 games under 60% without Bijan, you're in trouble.
What intrigues me really about Texas is going to be that line. You know, they brought in some pretty good freshmen that got some run this past season. And now I'm really curious to see how that develops because, quite frankly, it terrifies me playing freshmen in certain positions like offensive line. That terrifies me, and quarterback, because it feels like those are positions are better suited when you have experience. Linebacker is also one that kind of scares me. Secondary, it's not as bad to me for the most part. Maybe safety, but I think corner is okay because you're on an island regardless. You got to figure out how to stop your receiver no matter what your experience level is. But the offensive line, having freshmen on there, chemistry is key in protecting your quarterback. And I'm curious to see what that line looks like now. They have a year under their belt with experience and how much they grow. And I think that's going to actually help the run game a lot more. And it probably help Quinn even more as well, because I think the numbers show that Bijan led the country in yards after the first contact, and a lot of the first contact was like behind the line of scrimmage. So he was basically making stuff happen. Him and Roshan, they were figuring it out basically on their own.
Their offensive line is an enigma. They're young. Yeah. They're going to be unbelievable. That offensive line is going to be incredible. But for a young line, they were better in pass.
And that is what I want to see.
Yeah, they were better at pass than run blocking, which is really rare. Really rare.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you got a running back like Bijan, you would think that that run would go, because they're going forward, you would think that they would be better at it, and they weren't, which was a shocker. And just lucky to have a generational talent like Bijan being able to go out there and make it happen regardless of who's blocking for him. I'm really curious to see what they do for the new running back sets they have, like Jaden Blue, who's the one that's jumping on the charts right now because Jonathan Brooks is hurt. What that looks like, and then if Quinn can stay calm with them in front of them, and they don't get him leveled like in the Alabama game.
Yeah, no. Listen, Truth. I hear you, and I think we probably just view on the level differ on the level of inconsistencies. I still, and I'm so sorry to everybody, and I'm going to be hated for this. If I had to pick right now a team to win the Big 12, my initial answer would probably be Texas this year. Just looking at what they return, I'd imagine the offensive line is going to be better. But the Big 12, I think, is a super intriguing conference this year, right? And then my opinion could change.
I think Texas could beat Oklahoma twice this year, which is very rare to see a team beat Oklahoma twice in 1 year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Well, here's one thing I'll say, Cole. Frightening is a very, 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 very intelligent guy. Me and Frightening talk a lot about football. And he's a very intelligent guy. No, man, I completely hear you. If you list 11 out of 30, that's 60%. But if you miss 17 out of 36, including 6 to Xavier, that's 40% and looks terrible. And I hear you. I will give you all of the deep throws. The intermediate middle throws are what scare me. And before the season started, a Texas content creator that is very highly thought of specifically told me they're worried about Quinn over the middle. They were worried about Bama baiting him. Now, fortunately, he tore Bama up. He torched them. He was sensational. But that's what I mean. I'll grant you the long throws against Oklahoma State because of the wind, but the throws over the middle.
Yeah. He ain't going to do that to Bama twice.
I'm your friend. Does he miss? Look for a team to come out of nowhere in the Big 12 and challenge. Could be. Now, Truth, don't get me wrong. When I say concern, that's a strong word. You get what I mean here. When I say concern, It's more of like, hey, he's sensational.
Got to get better at this.
What I was told is he is automatic outside the numbers. And that's what we saw, right? His throws outside the numbers against Bama were... It didn't look like a true freshman. That timing route he threw to Worthy on that first one, that didn't look like a true freshman throwing that ball. That was sensational. But over the middle, they were like, yeah, he gets a little happy, and I think it's the footwork. I honestly think that's all it is. The kid has so much talent that we've seen this before. How many times have we had this conversation? You have a guy with so much talent and they can rely on their arm instead of all the mechanics. When he has all the mechanics, dear God, guys, that kid, there's not a blade on that football field he can't touch with that football, with his arm. Quinn's got a cannon.
Except for over the middle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, though.
Teasing. Teasing. I'm teasing. No, I think, if anything, I want to make sure that Sarkisian makes the right choices in specific games when things can be on the line. Like that Oklahoma State game was a malpractice on his part. You're in a game, the wind is horrible. Why are you having Quinn throw the ball and look bad? I think that game, if anything, I blame on Sark more than Quinn, because if you're playing in that kind of wind in that stadium, you can't do that to him. That's wrong.
No, and look, I don't disagree at all. And that's why I said, to Truth's point, I will completely grant you all those long throws to Worthy, because that's not a fair assessment, right?
Right.
That being said, I know this is going to sound counterintuitive because if you're asking me a quarterback that I think is going to be very good this year, I mean, my answer is Quinn. I think that he is going to have a real button-up season, right? I think this year he's showing up with his lunch pail. He's business. He's buttoned up. He's ready to go. That's just what because I think last year having an inconsistent season can be big, because you see how highs your high are. And then you see like, oh, okay, well, this is where I have to grow. So, yeah, I think he's up for a huge season this year. I really do. I'm not trying to say anything I said to take anything away. He's going to be a beast. No doubt about that. Well, I mean, we have the A&M spring game. We have the USC spring game. We have the Georgia spring game. And that USC spring game.
That one's intriguing because I'm curious to see what Malachi Nelson's going to look like.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about Caleb being a generational talent. I'm not saying Malachi is that, but I mean, he is the perfect quarterback for a Lincoln Riley system. So that intrigues me a little bit, but I've heard nothing but good things about Anthony Lucas on the defensive line for USC. And then I'm curious to see how this USC defense kind of goes together. So, there were rumors that Damani Jackson might hit the portal earlier. It looks like he's ended up staying there. Same thing for Cavante Henry. Those were 2 5-stars, top 5 players in the country in their respective classes. So I'll be curious to see how that USC defense looks during the spring game against an offense that we know can be explosive. And at this point, Lincoln Riley's not hiding anything, or he shouldn't need to hide anything, because his playbook has pretty much been open wherever he's been. So,
no doubt. And Jay, before I pass this to you, I do want to talk about this, because Neo, here's what I'll say. Because you look, that was the one thing that whenever they were like, hey, whenever I was talking to the guys, like, Quinn is so good outside the numbers. His touch is so good, his deep ball, but over the middle, it's a little inconsistent. You got to remember, man, that's also a true freshman quarterback we were talking about.
Not true freshman, redshirt. Remember, he played at Ohio State for a year, but he is also a year younger.
But remember, like I said, bro, there's not an offensive coordinator worth his salt that's going to get a quarterback in August and really be prepping them.
Oh, no, that's 100% true. Yeah.
Right. So, like, you're not wrong. So I'll say true freshman with an asterisk next to his name, right? Because fair point, Jay. No doubt about that. No doubt about that.
I think the one thing about that is remembering that he is a year younger, because he did forego his senior year to go out and play at Ohio State and learn something. And so I agree with the asterisk piece on it, because technically he would be a redshirt freshman this year.
Yes. We can call him a redshirt freshman. I think that satisfies both of our purposes. Point being this. That might have worked year one. I don't know that I would just like roll that dice in year 2, given that he's already seen something. And to Truth's point, they move Whittington to the slot. I really like Whittington. And y'all know what I think about Jatavian Sanders. Y'all know what I think about the tight end position in general, but you know what I think about Jatavian Sanders. I think he is going to be fantastic. Jay, talk to us about this USC spring game. What are you interested in?
No, I'm intrigued to see Malachi as well. PG hit the nail on the head. I want to see him. I want to see what the running back room looks like. They lost what did Travis Dye is coming back next year, right?
Yeah.
No.
Did he or was he out of eligibility? I couldn't remember. That was the reason
he's
why
moving on. And that, if I'm not mistaken, that was the only piece where I was like, man.
Oh wait, but they got that one from South Carolina though, didn't they?
Oh no, look, they have Raleek Brown, who I don't know that they're going to use him as a straight up quote unquote running back, but he's going to be such a dangerous weapon.
That's what I was curious about there, because I know Travis is gone, so it looks like he is done. Raleek, he played because Travis is going out, and now you have you have Austin Jones as well as Marshawn Lloyd coming in. Lloyd's the one I think you're talking about that came from South Carolina, just transferred in. I'm curious to see if Raleek ends up getting that starting spot, or if he's forced and relegated back based upon some of the initial depth charts that's coming out for the spring game. It doesn't look like he's going to actually be at the starting spot, which is very weird to me, but it's okay. But you're right. I think he's going to be a huge weapon for them. But Malachi is what interests me. I want to see what he's going to look like. I don't think Caleb's a generational talent, but I think he's an exceptional talent. I don't think he's a world beater fully. I don't think he's the Cam Newton of walking out there and, carrying your team to a national championship by yourself. Sorry, Ty. But you have – I'm sorry. But I do think that he's exceptional as a player, and I want to see if Malachi, and as PG said, he looks like he's built specifically for a Lincoln Riley offense. I'm truly intrigued on that defense. Don't really care about their defense. Their defense is going to do the same thing they do every year. They're going to start off very, very well, and then the Alex Gritch defense is going to come out, and then everybody's going to start pointing out, why aren't they playing defense? Not much you can do about that when that is basically how your system is set up, unfortunately. But I am very intrigued at the quarterback position when they go back and forth. I want to see that. And Penn State's, honestly, they're one that really jumps out to me too, that I'm really intrigued about. I want to see what their quarterback position is going to look like.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Hold on.
PG, before you go into this, I just want to hit this comment. Neo says, but if the film shows he struggles there, talking about Quinn Ewers over the middle, take away your opponent's strength and make them beat you with your weakness. And actually, before I could say it, truth beat me to it. I just don't, and I could be wrong, I just don't anticipate that that's going to be a weakness year 2. Look, guys, this is one thing we can say, because I know there are a lot of Oklahoma fans in here right now. I know that a lot of people are going to say Sark hasn't ever had over X wins. We do know what he's done with quarterbacks, though, right? Like, that's something we can't take away from him. He has, with Mac Jones at Alabama, he has done a lot with the quarterback position.
I don't know if I can credit Mac Jones for him. I'm sorry.
Why not?
Who recruited Mac?
Well, it's not about who recruited you.
No. I have a point, but who recruited him? Wasn't that a Lane Kiffin?
Sure.
Wasn't he really under Kiffin to groom as they were using all these generational talents at quarterback? I'm not saying that Sark can't. I'm just looking. No. I'm going back to all of the other quarterbacks.
No, Lane was pretty much long gone by the time Mac got into his development.
Okay. So I'm more so for me, I'm looking at when you go back to the USC and the Washington years of him being the head guy and bringing in players. I'm not saying that he didn't impact Mac. I'm just saying I don't know if I credit him for all of it. But I do want to see Sark grow Quinn, especially since Quinn is considered one of the highest rated players in recruiting history, since recruiting has really been tracked.
He's supposed to be better than Caleb, by the way.
I need to see this. And if I don't see that this season,
perspective, he could be.
Oh, no, arm-wise, I think he's got an arm, and I think that he can be accurate at times. I think he just tried to do too much.
I just think it's one of those things like we talk about with Spencer Rattler all the time. You were so talented coming out of high school that sometimes you can get away from the fundamentals because you didn't have to worry about it. You were so otherworldly. Your arm is so blessed that you're like, I can get away with just not even setting my feet and just
the fundamentals. What's that?
But whenever Quinn would clean up his footwork, especially towards the end, whenever he cleaned up his footwork, he was really, really automatic. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. Now, PG, I cut you off there, man. Go ahead and hop into what you were going to say.
Well, I mean, the first thing is Oklahoma fans just need to be realistic, guys. Texas is going to be really good next season, and y'all just are going to have to get over it because at some point Texas was going to be back, and their coaching staff, they know what they're doing, and they made all of the right hires. They made all of the right pickups this past offseason. Texas is going to win some games, And OU fans are just going to, have to pray and hope that Oklahoma can really come out there and be a strong defense this year to beat Texas. But, Jay, you didn't mention a specific recruit at USC, Zachariah Branch. Is he not going to be playing in the spring game this year? Because that's one that I think was a little intriguing.
I believe he is. I don't know if he's going to take anybody's spot because you still got Mario. They brought in the transfer Dorian Singer, who he played at Arizona. If I'm correct.
Yep.
Yeah, Arizona. Yeah, because I remember he came into Oklahoma to visit as well. So that was one school he was looking at. And so because of that, you got Branch and what's that, Malachi Lemon. You got 2 freshmen coming in, and if I'm correct, both of them did early enroll. So you've got, the wide receiver room is pretty talented
really
already
nice.
at the front. So
I think Branch is better than Mario, though.
I don't know if I see him taking a spot.
I think he's a better pass catcher.
Oh wait,
I
if you're asking me are we asking who we think's a better wide receiver? Zach Branch or Mario Williams?
Well, can Zachariah Branch take a starting spot from somebody? I definitely think he could. Especially with Caleb Williams, that's going to be an extremely great.
He ran like a 10-2.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, like Jay, he's freaky. Like there's
no, stats. I know. I'm reminded as
it's
he was
not
committed.
Right. He's so good.
I'm just curious though, is how Lincoln Riley's going to actually use him. That's really it for me.
I love this point by Truth. Someone said in the comments, Texas fans or Texas always says they're back, and Truth is over here. He said, no.
And that's why I told PG not to say that, because when Texas says they're back,
I said they will be back at some point.
You said Texas is back at some point. Don't say Texas is back at all. Don't ever say that, because it's good for us, but for the most part, you're jinxing it for them.
I've been reading the comments, and I've been watching people say like Oklahoma has an easy schedule. I'm not saying Oklahoma's not going to be in the Big 12 championship with Texas. I just really think that unless Oklahoma's defensive line is super, super good this year, it's going to be really hard to play up against that Texas offensive line.
I think it will be, but I think it's still like an absolute point, PG, to your credit, that it's going to be tough.
It's just I have so many questions about the Oklahoma offensive line. I don't really have as many questions about the Texas offensive line. And I think that is the one area where I say Texas has you beat. And honestly, if that's where they can beat you.
But see, the one thing that I push back on that is that we do have Beaton Bow, who has been putting a whole bunch of 3-star athletes that people don't really pay much attention to into the NFL, and they're getting these fat contracts, meaning that they're actually really good.
I'm looking at the Oklahoma.
I'm talking about you talking about their offensive line towards our defensive line.
Yes,
I get you there. I don't know. I think
there's just somebody like I just watched the video of McCullough completely just get back there and ransack whoever that running back was earlier.
Well, in fairness, nobody blocked him.
Well, yeah, but it's and also it's a spring practice. I can't take anything that I'm seeing on Twitter right now from these guys and say, "Oh, yeah, this is what the Oklahoma defense is going to look like." Because last year,
well, there you go. That's
in fairness,
McCullough.
PG, I don't know if it was an overload, because the clip I saw, the first half of the clip looked like it was filmed on a potato, and then the second half of the clip was
set up.
So I don't know who filmed that first clip, but their potato is. They need to upgrade to this year's newest edition of potato. But the clip I saw, it could have been an overload blitz, right? I don't know.
Is this the one you're looking at?
Oh, this right here. Okay, we don't have it on a potato right here.
This is, and I'm just going to pull it through real quick so you can see so this is the one that I'm looking at here. And you'll see him come through. And
whose head is that?
That's one of the refs.
Tell him to get out the way.
Okay, but you'll see the running back right there, and then you'll see McCullough just come in here and.
Yeah, so I don't know. He just came clear unblocked. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't take anything that I'm seeing here in spring practice and in these videos for 100% what we're going to see this season, because we saw these same things last year. And I saw the Texas offensive line last year, and I'm saying they can do that same thing.
Yeah, here's what I will say, though. The same way, you could use that point, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? The same way you could say, oh, well, it's spring, I'm worried about that. Flip side is it's spring, and that could just be your defense testing out some new, more advanced blitz looks, and your offensive line still on a very basic, let's get everybody gelling, let's get everybody right. So, like, I don't know that I would be worried at all by seeing a prospective new Cheetah come unblocked on that, because for all I know, your defense could have shown complete sellout blitz, and then all of a sudden he comes down, your guard focused inside, your tackle whiffs going on the outside edge, and McCullough comes down. I don't know. There's just 1,000 possibilities that could happen. But point being, I do agree with one thing you're saying, that you do have some uncertainty on the offensive line. Now, to Jay's point, you have Bill Bedenbaugh.
Well, I'm not talking about the OU offensive line at all. I'm strictly talking about Texas O-line versus versus OU offensive line. If I look at that matchup twice, I'm going to pick Texas both times. I mean, just because I haven't seen enough from the Oklahoma defensive line to say that Texas is going to have disadvantage in either of those games. That was the only point I'm trying to make. Yeah, when it comes to the OU offensive line, I think they've got Texas all day long. But, on the defensive side of the ball, we've seen it. If you can't stop anybody.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Look, no doubt there. And truth, I've been watching a lot of film, trying to learn. I've probably annoyed a few people who played college football with all the questions I've had for them, but I'm getting there. Might take me 10, 12 years, but
I think the problem I have is I just don't know how to develop the questions yet. I know what I'm seeing. I think I'm understanding it. I just don't know what to ask yet. It's just,
that's why
I get too enamored with the film. I think that's one of the biggest problems. I'm just like, oh, this is so
I'll
great.
text someone and just say, explain. Not even a question, just explain. Because I'm like you, I don't even know where to start. So let's just start with step A and take me all the way to Z. And then I'll ask the questions, because I'm real dumb, right? Like, I'm going to need to go back to step B.
Let's go full remedial, guys. I want to start from scratch.
So we'll get it figured out. Guys, there's a lot of exciting spring games. Now, one thing I did want to talk about before we get out of here, all right, is this Big Ten recruiting. Guys, Ohio State, Michigan, we talked about this last week. But holy wow.
This is the off-season content I'm here for.
Yes. Look, but do you remember, PG, whenever you asked me, it was in a green room one time. You were telling me, you were like, well, what do you do for off-season content? Isn't it pretty stagnant? And I told you, no, actually, as crazy as this is, off-season content is just as easy as regular, because you get to theory craft. And you get to sit back, and it's almost more fun because everybody is excited. You can play the what if game. It is awesome, but we don't have to play the what if game with this. We know Ohio State and Michigan are recruiting their tails off. Ohio State gets a big win this weekend. 4-star quarterback Aaron Noland picking Ohio State over a lot of good teams. Guys, what are we thinking about the Big Ten recruiting right now? Because, I mean, Hayes Fawcett shortly after has hinted several times, I think 3 or 4 times now, he's hinted that Ohio State and Michigan are just about as hot as you could be on the trail. What are y'all thinking about that?
They're battling each other. I mean, Michigan's right now on 24/7 at number 2, at Ohio State right there at number 4. They're both pulling in a bunch of 5 and 4 stars. Well, they're bringing in 5 and 4 stars. Michigan has 1. Ohio State has 2 of them. But no, they're surging fast, and it's crazy that Aaron Noland picked Ohio State over in-state team Georgia, and he made a comment that I thought was fascinating, but at the same time I thought was factually wrong. And this is what it was. He said that Ohio State develops black quarterbacks to go to the NFL, and I think really the only one you could point out to, I mean, like Troy, God, what's his last name? Troy Smith. He made it, of course, and then you got Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. But for the most part, I think his comment was more so a shot at Georgia because of the Justin Fields situation. You know, Georgia being Justin being a local guy, getting there, they didn't really treat him right, and then he bounces to Ohio State and has an exceptional set of seasons, and then he gets drafted. And so I'm guessing him leaving Georgia to go there to do something similar. I mean, I kind of get it, but I don't know about them sending him to the NFL, but I think Hartline's going to do some special stuff with him long term. I think that he's going to be a quarterback that could be one for the future. And similar to CJ Stroud, they're going to make some magic happen with that. And, the jury is still out on Stroud when he goes pro, but I think he's him and Bryce are definitely the most pro ready ones going into the draft.
I think so.
100%. I think the only knock, of course, on Bryce is his size and stature, and we just hope that he makes it through the NFL. Stroud's a little bit bigger and more sturdier, but, the jury's still out. But that was a big pickup for them, man. That getting your quarterback and getting a good one early is so helpful in your recruiting process, because then you could really focus, because that's the one position that is the toughest to recruit for, of course, because you only get one that can actually play. And so you've got a lot of convincing to do. And so now they got him, and then they add more wide receivers. It's just going to keep adding wide receivers on top of wide receiver. I'm getting tired of Hardline adding wide receiver on wide receiver.
I'm tired of Hardline.
He needs to be he needs to be investigated. He didn't break any rules. I just want him investigated.
No, he didn't break any rules. It's just
I just want him investigated.
This is
I just want him investigated for being absurd. That's all I want. Just put him in handcuffs. Why? Just because I think he's absurd. I mean, he's that good. He's too good. It's not fair. He's a cheat code, and he basically put all of his stats at 99 on Madden, and that's not fair. We can't allow that anymore. But no, he's doing a fantastic job of just pulling in these receivers, and I think he's just going to keep doing it until he gets a head coaching job. And now I guess the question I would ask y'all would be a question a little bit later after we talk about the recruiting of Ohio State and Michigan is, do you think that Hardline ends up replacing Ryan Day one day?
Oh, yeah.
He could. Look, I'm not even almost letting myself get that far ahead, right? Just because I don't know that I'm just like out on Day. And I know there's a lot of talk online about Day, right? But here's my thing. This is a huge year for Ohio State for multiple reasons. And maybe at the forefront of them is what it means for Ryan Day and his future. Because, Jay, here's what I do agree with you on. No matter how I feel about Ryan Day, even if I feel like, hey, he's going to be a really solid coach, he just is young. Because, for coaching terms, he is a younger guy. How old is he? He's in his 40s, right? 50s?
Yeah, I think he's early 40s. Let me look him up real quick. But yeah, he's young.
For coaches, he's a young guy. I think he's going to be just fine. But, Jay, to your point,
44.
What are you going to do if he loses to Harbaugh in Michigan for a third straight time?
And Ty, I want to ask you this question just to interrupt you purposely.
No, by all means.
If Saban lost to Auburn 3 years in a row, you think he loses his job?
If they don't win a college football playoff game and national I don't know. I see that's a little tough just because
the hate. That's the hate between that rivalry, right? Right?
That's a good point. That's a great
point. You see what I'm saying? It's
No.
the hate of the rivalry that feels like it clouds everything. Because look, Ohio State lost 2 games last year, Michigan and in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Year before, they lost 2 games, Michigan, and I forgot the other game.
Great point.
But that's
But if
the
you
thing.
listen to
It's
the fans,
everybody's
you think
attacking
everything
you.
100%.
That's what I mean, is that they're attacking him to take this man's job, and he's beating everybody besides the one team that everybody requires him to beat. That is the question. If he loses a third time to Michigan and still win every game and even win a national championship, he might lose his job.
Ryan,
That would be absurd. That is stupid. But
I disagree with you up
happen.
until the national championship point. But I look. I don't think there is a debate that this is a monumental year. And Jay, to your point, we have to think of the framing and the optics of this, because guys, this is an easy thing to hear and then think about and be like, oh yeah, they. Ryan Day has had otherworldly success at Ohio State. If we're looking at how he has done compared to the rest of college football, 99.9% of teams say, I would trade to be y'all. That's the truth.
Yes.
That's the truth.
But the hate is
here we
so real. That just
unbelievable.
It just amazes me in that capacity. It's like the one thing that can save your job. I mean, honestly, for Texas, Charlie Strong saved his job by beating Oklahoma that one year.
Yep.
But it does not make any sense to fire a coach that's getting you 11 wins just because they lost to that one team. And it'll never make sense to me.
PG, I swear I'm going to throw it to you after this. I just have this last point. Here's the inverse, right? Just to prove how powerful what you're saying is. We don't even have to look at rivals. Let's look at brands. Now, in Ohio State's term, the fact that they're a rival, just times it by 1,000, right? Jimbo Fisher is getting paid like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart for beating Bama. That's not a rivalry game. So let's think of that in the optics of this. Now we're talking the inverse. Jimbo's not going 10 wins. Jimbo hasn't been to the college football playoffs with A&M. And here we are. Unbelievable, but that goes to prove what a special game college football truly is. PG, I apologize. Go ahead, man. I got a little ahead of myself.
No, I mean, y'all just bring up great points. I was just going to say, Ryan Day, he really should have won that game last year. And this is where I think Ohio State fans are starting to put him on the hot seat, because he dared a quarterback that we all knew could throw the ball deep, which made no sense. Absolutely no sense to me. So, like, when I say Ryan Day is going to get fired if they lose a third game, and it's this year, it's very possible because it's back in Michigan again this year. It's because last year he almost lost Ohio State the game because he dared Michigan to throw the ball. So, but yeah, no, I mean, this rivalry, even outside of on the field, just being on the recruiting trail, is everything I want and more. I mean,
everything.
Davis, the 5-star quarterback that is committed to Michigan, which is strange that Michigan got a 5-star quarterback and Ohio State did not. But Jaden Davis has specifically said he's coming after some of these Ohio State wide receivers and wide receiver targets. One of the biggest ones being Micah Hudson, who a lot of people think potentially lands with Ohio State at this point, which I know, Jay, you want Brian Hartline investigated. Well, he might land another 5-star wide receiver.
I know.
No, I'm putting it down. It is decided. It's not
calling
happening.
Police.
I will say this, though.
I'm calling aliens. Somebody's going to abduct him. I'm tired of it. It's too unfair. He's too good at this.
I will say the thing I think that's helping Michigan now in these games against Ohio State and to get to the point where they're at is they're continuing to state a classic college football where we've seen it over the past, 100 years, which is you got to continue to be able to be good at running the ball. You can't just focus on an air raid offense. And then they're also building really well down in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. Michigan recruits well.
Sharon Moore is a dude. Now, granted, Ohio State has the godfather of defensive line recruiting, as I like to call him, Larry Johnson. But we look at the other side, Sharon Moore on the offensive line.
He does a really good job
for Michigan. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Oh, they might land. Job. I think that there's a chance they might land 2 or 3 more. They took an offensive lineman from Oklahoma that we really wanted, and Andrew Spag out of Kansas City, right in our backyard that, Oklahoma is supposed to recruit really well in Kansas. So I think Michigan, they're probably going to go out there. They're going to land probably 2 or 3 more top tier, maybe top 200 defensive line or offensive linemen. They'll go land some really good defensive linemen. They might go out there and get themselves a couple of good skill players. And that might just be enough to beat Ohio State again a couple of years down the road.
Did I say Shannon Moore or Sharon? I meant Sharon Moore. I think I said Shannon.
You said Sharon. You said Shannon one time, but then you said Sharon the next time. So yeah, you did. You cleared up. So yeah.
My mistake. I do want to address this right here, and then Jay, I'm going to throw it to you. I just want to quickly. Frightening ask, if you fire Day for losing to Michigan for another 10-win season, you may just be firing Smart before he gets there, referring to if Georgia had fired Kirby Smart before he broke through. And truth, this gets to the point I think Jay and I were both trying to make. The conversation of should he be fired goes out the window whenever we're talking about a fandom of this level. It's
rivalries.
Yes, right.
It's one of the oldest rivalries up there. With you got your 3 major rivalries. You got the big game, which doesn't even have a name because of its just being that much. You've got the Iron Bowl, and then you got the Red River. I mean, that's your 3 right there. Just like. The losing coaches hurt themselves.
Yeah,
we're leaving out great ones.
That's a good point in the chat. And I think this is a very good point. Ohio State's they're like a Lincoln Riley team, maybe a little bit better than Lincoln Riley team. They're not as physical as a Georgia or a Michigan or an Alabama. They beat you because they just have damn good skill players. That's really what it comes down to.
Look,
and that's fair.
I don't disagree. I do not disagree with that, but here's where I will give a little asterisk, Bryce, and I'm interested in hearing your opinion on this. So hop back in that comment. Get on the keyboard right now. I'm going to test your words per minute. Do you think that we can put a little asterisk by that because he made the move for Knowles? And we do have to give Knowles a little bit of time to get in there and make some moves with that defense. Knowles had a great defense at Oklahoma State. Senior defense, I grant you.
It was
but a really, really good defense.
Well, and he turned it around. He turned it around last year. I mean, they definitely had a significant.
Sure.
But I think it really does come down to that, and that's where I say the difference between the Oklahoma teams and the Ohio State teams was Ohio State is a little bit more physical than the Oklahoma teams were. But I mean,
it's a great
kind of the same
comparison.
story.
No, I look, I don't disagree in the least. I think it's a really apt comparison. I'm just curious from Bryce's perspective if he thinks Knowles can help bring that edge back. And if that's the case, we have an interesting conversation. If not, we have an even more interesting conversation.
Conditioning?
See, this is the point, right? That's why I said it. Either way, we have an interesting conversation to be had.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one to go through. And the physicality between Oklahoma and the Riley regime and kind of only disagree because they played each other. And we saw kind of like Ohio State coming to Oklahoma and winning in Norman, and then OU going out to Ohio State and planting the flag with the W and
all-time great moment.
Yeah, it was all-time great moment. I think both teams were super physical.
Awesome.
But I think both teams were very physical in general. So I don't know if I can say that it was that Ohio State's more physical than Oklahoma. I think I don't know if I can agree with that statement, but I can say that I think Ohio State just bleeds talent nonstop. It just oozes out of their pores they just do it. And Ty, we've got to talk about this one player that had a great statement for Miami fans. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
This is going to be the last point before we get out of here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this.
Because I gotta talk. So Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, 5-star, the number 2 player in the country on 24/7's composite, and number 1 for his position in state, etc., so on and so forth. He's been seen in Miami hanging out. He's had a whole bunch of visits out there or whatnot, and he tweeted out something and said that Miami fans are full of it. And he ended up deleting it, and so a Miami fan felt the need to take the screenshot and say something about it. I'm like, oh, bro, why you keep coming here then? And another fan said, yeah, wasting everybody's time, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Jeremiah replies back, don't worry, I ain't coming back to campus.
I'm not coming back.
I'm not coming back. And to be honest, I think he was probably down there recruiting other players to come up there to Ohio State. Probably. Not even going to front. But it's just hilarious that now that Miami fans have money without production on the field, they feel the need to show out at these recruits. Just the fact that anyone would say anything crazy to a recruit, granted, they probably are all the same age, the ones that are really talking the most noise, but wild to me. Wild.
Guys, PG had to head out. Be sure to go over to his channel, The PG Show. Subscribe. Treasure, thank you so much. If you're first time here, we do streams like this every Monday, every Friday. And hey, changes are on the way to the channel. This is going to be a much more consistent thing. Streams like this, the interaction, stuff like this. I'd love to have you around, Treasure. Do me one favor, though, man. Do me one kindness. The PG Show, he was the individual, the gentleman who just left. Be sure to go check out his channel. He makes great stuff. And the gentleman sitting next to me, Jay, at Unfair Sports, be sure to go check out his channel as well. Jay, if you would, drop a comment in the chat. That way Treasure can go over, find all your great content as well. These streams, they're awesome because of the collection, man. But I absolutely appreciate the subscription, man. Love to have you around. I'm really excited to do some more Ohio State content. Super excited for y'all's future. SBC, thank you for the 5. He says, jumping in way late, but wanted to say what's up and ask Ty if we can do I'm an idiot.
State of the Union
for Wisconsin and upcoming. Yes. No, I
actually want to talk about
Wisconsin.
Hey, we had to do that. Let's do that. Let's put something together for both our channels and talk through it. I would love to talk some Wisconsin football. Let's plot. I know the guy, the 24/7 guy there at Wisconsin. I actually, he helped me with some stuff when I was in grad school. I'm going to have to reach out to him as well because I kind of want to talk about Fickle as well. I've been debating on Wisconsin being the school that I adopt out of the Big 10 to talk about on the channel just to keep the content flowing so we have more stuff to talk through. It's been between them and Michigan because I don't like, but I also like Harbaugh. I've always been that guy. And Michigan was a school that I wanted to go to. I applied to and got in and just didn't travel up there.
I wanted to apply there really bad.
So Ohio State fans will be mad at me. I mean, I have family that are from Ohio and they just made me not really like Ohio State. So
Well, it's interesting, man. When I was in high school, so I wanted to apply to Michigan. I didn't end up doing so, mainly because I had applied to Alabama, gotten in, and I was just like, done.
I'm happy.
Done.
Same thing I did with Tennessee.
Then when I realized I wanted to do law school, I was like, I need to go somewhere that's going to give me a scholarship so I don't graduate with a ton of debt. Now I'm not in law school, so joke's on me, right? I should have just graduated with the debt. What does it matter? Everything's going to hell. Anyways.
Right. The world's going to come to an end. Aliens are on their way.
Yeah. F is for Fanatic says, good idea. Dad's an alum, talking about his dad is an alum of Wisconsin. So you already know he's got to join us for this. But I did want to talk about this a little bit. Jeremiah Smith, right? I did. Jay, you got your word in. I did want to get my little 2 cents in here, and then we're going to go. Guys, this is why I say right, wrong, or indifferent. Whenever you tweet at recruits, I'm not saying your tweets of admiration are going to win the recruiting battle. That's not my contention here. But what if in the event, and Treasure, close your ears real fast. I know we've gotten off to a great start to this friendship, and I hope I don't damage it right now. Close your ears. What if the NFL calls Heartline and gives him an opportunity he just can't refuse? And what if Jeremiah Smith is like, okay, well, I'm going to shop again? I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just posing you as an example to lay the foundation to make my point. Now that kid is probably not going to even consider Miami because he's like, oh, y'all were talking out your neck. As opposed to if he would have said, hey, I'm sewing it up, I'm all Ohio State, you don't have to even tweet at him. Don't say anything. Or if you must say something, hit him with a, hey, man, awesome. Happy you're pursuing greatness. You're doing, I'll be rooting for you. Right. Take that approach. Because then if the worst happens, and like I said, Brian Hartline gets that move up and something happens, and this isn't relegated to Brian Hartline and Ohio State. This could be Julian Sayin at Alabama. Okay, let's say it's between Alabama and USC. And all of a sudden the USC fans are saying, okay, we'll kick rocks. Well, what if he decommits from Alabama and now all of a sudden he's like, well, I'm not going there. I'll go to UCLA.
Right. Got to keep that in mind.
You're not going to win the recruitment battle for your school by tweeting at these kids. You can sure hurt it.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
All right.
100%. I'm good on that.
All right, Treasure. Your plug's out. I think we're good. I think we're good now.
Now.
We're back to a safe space. We're back to a safe space. No, I certainly wouldn't anticipate that happening, but you guys get the picture I'm trying to paint. If you must say something to these recruits, just tell them, hey, man, awesome what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, they're pursuing greatness. And I think it's Maya Angelou. She has a great quote. What is your deepest fear? My deepest fear is not that I am adequate. My deepest fear is that I am powerful beyond all measure. And it is us pursuing our light that gives others around us the permission to find their light as well. That's why recruiting matters. It's much bigger than just the game. But the game is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, guys, we'll be back. SEC Connect, we're coming live Wednesday this week. Be sure to go over there. Be sure to subscribe to the SEC Connect. You'll see Jay and I over there every Wednesday, along with Steven, who's a Fanatics Perspective, Nino's Sports Corner, and Chris Griffin of the Horns Down podcast. Once again, SEC Connect every single Wednesday evening. We'll be live again Friday, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. And Jay, of course, as always, where can the people find all your great content?
Just search for me on YouTube at Unfair Sports. Find your boy. Come join us. Join the family. We talk a lot of OU football, bringing in some Colorado football. And like I said, I got a couple more schools I need to adopt just to keep the content going. But we talk a lot of college football as well. And Ty pulls up whenever I can make time to come to get on his schedule. It's usually my fault. So, but it's going to happen. More collaborations will go down.
Yeah, we're going to pencil in this Wisconsin one. That's absolutely coming. Love that idea, Bates. That's coming. I won't promise this week, but I will say I'll try it. We'll try and get it done this week. Right?
Yeah.
But by next week, that video will be out. Until Wednesday, and at the very least Friday, we'll see y'all next time. That's it. See you.
Peace.
Spinning.